Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Packer Universe podcast. We're a Green Bay Packers fan podcast bringing you topical and most relevant Packers news along with our humble, subjective opinions. This is episode 258. We're recording this on a Wednesday, February 7th, 2024. A lot has happened in the past couple weeks since we recorded last. We got a new D coordinator, end of the year message from Goody, a new search for a CEO is underway, and free agency is up next. I'm your host, Tay, and joining me on the comms tonight is our one and only
Ren. What up, Tay? How we doing on a Wednesday night in early February? It's already the 7th, Tay. Crazy, this year's flying by. We got Super Bowl coming up, Super Bowl 58. Kind of goes along with episode, what?
Yeah, 258, right.
We're doing here, Tay.
That's okay.
Life imitating, or as they say, and what you and I do together, Tay, is definitely art. So,
yes.
Yeah, we're already here. It's going to be 54 degrees tomorrow here in Northeast Wisconsin. We welcome that. A little early taste of spring, although it hasn't felt much like winter. So, how you feeling today, Tay, on a Wednesday?
I'm feeling great, Ren. We had our little 1 week off Super Bowl week thing. So we do apologize to our loyal listeners out there for taking last week off. But we're back this week, and I'm excited about some of the news we're going to talk about today. We, like I said in the opener, a lot has happened in the last 2 weeks, so we'll get to that. Like you were saying, Ren, 54 tomorrow here in Northeast Wisconsin. Do you think that this is what do you say, an indicator, a good indicator that we could have the Super Bowl in Green Bay, Wisconsin ever?
No. Everything I heard this week from Radio Row, where you and I are coming from right now, no, that's not happening, is just the little mass amounts, Tay, of places they put things from Radio Row and everything else in and around a city. And I've heard, some Wisconsin folks that are out there that do their thing, or different podcasters that are affiliated with the Green Bay Packers. I mean, it's just the infrastructure, Tay. No, I don't. After hearing this and really thinking about it clearly, I don't think it's the room problem. I think it's just this mass Super Bowl infrastructure thing. When we're talking about, they have, Tay, something like 30, I don't know, 1,000 private jets they have to offload and park elsewhere away from the airport.
Must be nice.
I mean, it's something nuts like that, Tay. And what they're charging just for parking those private jets, by the way, is incredible. Money you and I can't even imagine. And they're doing it on a daily. So, people that own these things. No, I just, Northeast Wisconsin, unfortunately, you deal with the Appleton Airport, the Green Bay Airport, other local airports up and down to Milwaukee, to Madison. I just don't think at this point in time there's enough infrastructure to really handle that kind of thing.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate just for a second, mostly because I usually do, and secondly because I think I actually believe in my sentiment. I think you should just try it. Like, we're going to try it in 2025 with the draft. I mean, that is a huge deal. There's a ton of people. There's a lot of media and stuff like that. So I just don't, I don't understand maybe why we can't do that still. But I guess we will see kind of what happens with the 2025 draft and, any issues that would like kind of crop up from that. But the plane thing, right? I mean, like, just fly into Milwaukee and take a limo up. You're already paying the handsome price of a docking fee and storing your private jet somewhere. Just take a limo up from Milwaukee. I mean, there are ways to do this, and why is that the precedent? You have to have slots for these private jets. I mean, like, we've created that problem. Why do we have to keep doing it to reinforcing it? So that's my little soapbox thing. But why can't Green Bay have it? We'll find out in 2025 draft if it's possible. What the issues come out of this are. But I think that there are enough places for people to stay. I think you can do it.
Again, I think the biggest shutdown for you, and the reason why you don't see Super Bowls in Minneapolis anymore, or in Indianapolis, or in Detroit, uh, Detroit is simply the NFL also wants this to be in a locale that's desirable for celebrities, for wealthy people, that's warm generally. No, I don't ever see it also for that reason, Tay. It just doesn't.
Dogs and
It just
ponies have to be warm and comfy.
Yeah, the Super Bowl is kind of that deal. It is, unfortunately.
It's
It's not.
sick. I know, and,
It's
and
it's
that's
it's
sad.
not.
It's pretty sad.
It's when they'll sell you on Detroit, Green Bay on Thanksgiving Day, and it's fun with your family, and it's more the heart of what the NFL and the game is. But Super Bowl Sunday is a completely different thing globally. So and they sell that thing from entertainment. I mean, you're talking suites, Tay. You want a suite for 20 people, bottle service, food, other drinks. I think I saw one today, 20 people in Las Vegas, and I think it was $2.69 million for the box, or was it 20? I don't know. It was just it's stuff you can't imagine paying for in one day. It's just not what this Green Bay market can handle today. It's not what the NFL wants for this production. It's a production. It's pop culture. It's everything. It's the NFL.
Yeah, but aren't you? Isn't that a little sickening though? No, do you think that's a little sick? And maybe it's what this society needs is a little a pullback here. And let's get down to actually football. I think Andrew Brandt said it. I think a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now. He's like, well, the NFL is totally cool with a cold weather game for the NFC AFC championships. They don't care about that, and that's some of the best football played ever. But they'll just wine and dine you, and you have to have a roof over your head for the Super Bowl. It's very kind of a weird juxtaposition here. For all the reasons you're saying, it's all about the money. It's all about the whining and dining. Everybody,
it's the advertising. Look at these commercial bits. I mean, it's crazy.
Do they really need that? I mean, do they need the NFL? That is, the cities that these are in, totally reasonable, right? Like that effect. We've heard that countless times here in Green Bay of how that affects the surrounding community, and that's great. But if this is like padding the NFL's pockets, then nah, I think that's okay to change.
I think you might feel that way as a fan and a podcaster here in the smallest market in the NFL.
And Radio Row here.
On our Ren and Tay Radio Row. The reality is, it's just no. I mean, you can get as perturbed, and that's a nice Wisconsin word to describe it, as you want, Tay, but it's never going to happen, and that's the main reason why. Nice, warm weather. You're going to see so few Super Bowls, Tay, ever played, even where places they have a dome in cold climates. Here forward, it's not going to happen. The warm weather cities of the world, the LAs, the Miamis, the New Orleans, the Vegases, the Phoenixes, they're going to get the Super Bowl 9 times out of 10, and that's where it's going to live, and that's where it's going to be.
What's it going to be now? They're going to change it from Lombardi Trophy to the Lombardi Participation Trophy, and you showed up, you get a trophy. Here you go. It's like whatever happened to the actually fighting it out and have it being about a game. So
I agree, Tay. I mean, I don't think you're wrong that it takes away from the actual. I mean, all that is Super Bowl week, and obviously I've listened to a ton of it. I'm sure you have, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners have. I think it's really cool. I think it's really fun. I think it's energetic.
There's if your team's in it,
cool. Well, no, even when it's not. I mean, I think there's a lot of old school NFLers that people forget about, that are out there like just talking, and then a lot of them are slinging products they're selling. That's part of it. There's a lot of cross capitalism happening on Radio Row, as you and I know, being here. But that said, I mean, it's a fun thing. It's vibrant. But yeah, I think it does take away a little bit from the overall matchup. When the lights come on and the ball's kicked off and finally the ball is snapped, I think guys get back to brass tacks. But I do think the whole specter and what the Super Bowl is does take a little shine off of what it is that the game is between two teams on a field to ultimately win a championship. the Super Bowl clouds it a little bit based on what you're saying, and I agree with you.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that because I was getting a little worried there for a minute.
It doesn't happen often, Tay, that I agree with you, but occasionally, the stars do align.
Well, let's move on to something that matters for the Packers here. And that is last Wednesday, we did hire a new defensive coordinator. His name is Jeff Hafley, and he was the head coach at Boston College. And
the one A.J. Dillon's alma mater.
Although they didn't cross paths, unfortunately.
I'm aware. Yeah.
But this hire kind of I loved how it kind of ruffled everyone's feathers that was on the beat and in the media. They were like, "Whoa, why? Who's this guy? Like, what happened? What? Let me look it up who this is, that kind of thing." Or like, "Whoa, that wasn't on anyone's board." And part of me kind of likes that and liked that fact. Everyone was scrambling and didn't know what to think and was kind of knee jerk reaction into going "Oh, I don't know if I like this. This could be bad." That kind of thing. But I think once the dust settled and I can see that I don't have a problem with this right now. I like the hire. I think the guy has a lot of potential, and I guess I don't see any negative about it yet. We can get into it in a little bit here, but what was your that was my first reaction, Ren, but what was your first reaction to the Jeff Hafley news?
I was just say, what? Who?
You were just like the rest of them.
Yeah, I was like, okay. I mean, I didn't have an overreaction. It wasn't I've gotten to the point, and I think most of the Packer universe is with you and I say it's well, the honest thing is I'm thinking about it. I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna slow down. I'm gonna start listening. Who's Jeff Hafley? What is this about? What's he about? And start to go look at and read. But the reality is, I'm I got to tweet something about it, right? So I did. The reality is, we're not going to know until we know, and that is until a season plays out.
Yeah.
So, this time next year, we're going to have a lot better idea of exactly who Jeff Hafley is. We know that he does have ties to Matt LaFleur. They do know each other. There's a little bit of that. I know that some people screamed the whole, friend hire thing. It's just that they don't know each other that well. As everybody, again, that's why it's good not to overreact to these kind of things.
Yeah.
It seems friend hire, it's nepotism, it's all it's this.
Yeah,
it's that.
I don't think it was.
Right. Slow down. Let's kind of take it in. Who is this guy? Where does he come from? What's his background? And he has a ton of NFL background. He's been in college the last 4 years, but the college game, listening to interviews with him, is very different than the NFL, and it's something that I think a lot of coaches, and we'll get there, want to get out of because of how tough the game has become in college. The transfer portal, Ted, I don't know how much you followed the game, is kind of wrecking college football. They've got the whole NIL, the name, image, and likeness thing to deal with. The game itself, as Hafley went on to describe, is a different game. In the NFL, you don't play from a hash mark on the right or left. You play literally up the center of the field. It's a different game, but what they're dealing with, especially in smaller programs where Hafley comes from, is it's hard to deal with. You're recruiting guys that generally don't want to come to your college. You're not dealing with coffers that are as big as some of these bigger programs that can maybe offer more money to players now that they do get it. And you're not coaching as much as you're just trying to recruit. And you're having now, as a college coach, to recruit constantly, even guys you already recruited. You got to re-recruit them so they don't leave.
Yeah. Right.
So it leaves a door open, I think, to a lot of those guys saying, hey, especially in Jeff Hafley's case, can I get back in the NFL where I can just go coach college football? And I've heard him say a lot of things after he was hired last week in different interviews, not since he was hired, but how tough it is to coach and how he just loves to coach today.
Yeah.
What I liked about the hire, after, again, taking the big breath and starting to hear about him, is he's not a guy who wants to fit a round peg in a square hole. He doesn't. He's not going to try to say, oh, okay, I have a scheme. I have this player, so he's going to fit in my scheme this way. He's not going to do that. He's going to work schemes. He has a general thought process of what his scheme likes to look like. But if he has players that don't necessarily fit in a way, he adjusts to it, and he utilizes talent at his fingertips. And those are the things when you bring in a guy that we were all just saying. I'm just kind of digressing into all my thoughts on the hire, but with stuff like that, you that's kind of what you want to hear. Like when you're trying to find like who this guy is, where he came from. Oh my God, what do they do? That's what you want to hear. You want to hear he's a player's coach. He wants to do what's right for the people he has there, and listen. He talked about being the coach for Darrelle Revis, and he's like, I thought I was really good coach, but I just realized I had Darrelle Revis. He doesn't overthink himself, and you have to like that. So you get the idea that a guy doesn't think he's bigger or better than the people in front of him. That's kind of a refreshing scheme, and also in that, with that, the whole Packer mindset. We talked about once they hire a guy, this whole thing's going to turn over, and it has, and we'll get into some of those names here in a minute, and that's good. You're going to get a lot of fresh thought, and it seems, Tay, like they've gone pretty young, kind of to match, Matt LaFleur and his offense. That you've got a lot of young coaching minds there now, and you're going to have a lot of different takes on what it's been for so long in Green Bay. And some of the markers with a Jeff Hafley defense are single high safety, press man coverage, aggressive style of defense, and they're going to change to a 4-3 a la before saying they want to get to look a little bit like one of those two teams in the Super Bowl. That's the San Francisco 49ers. So it's going to be very, very different than what we're used to. But how are you feeling about it once you heard about it and had a little time to breathe and think and hear too much about it? Like I just maybe vomited on the entire Packer universe.
No, that's all right. It's all right. I mean, we all have to go through the process here. And I think, sometimes, just talking it out helps, Ren, even though maybe you get a little long-winded sometimes, but that's okay. We love it. I think you're right in saying, yes, we won't know until maybe a year from now or halfway through the season what's going on here. But I just think it's a contrast to what Barry was when he first got here. It was like, oh, yeah, there was a lot of negative things with him. He was the DC when the Lions went 0-16. It was like, oh, really? And then it was like you couldn't really point at anything really kind of tangible. But Hafley seems like he's got a really good resume. He was a head coach. He had defensive coordinator experience. He started out as a DB coach. So all those things are great. And then when you watch him talk, he's very, deliberate, energetic. You can tell he knows what he's talking about. And just to try to convey his message to players, it seems like he'll nail that. He's the guy for the job. And then to hire, we'll get to that, right? He hires some coaching staff, and they're younger, energetic guys too. So that to me is a great move. All indicators are this was a good move. We didn't hear, him being interviewed for the Packers. We heard a bunch of names, but he wasn't one of them. And just like draft picks, we're not privy to what, the coach, the guys up in 1265 are doing. Like we'll find out when they draft them during the draft, like what players they liked. Same with coaching. It's like we weren't going to hear, we could hear leaks and stuff about coaches coming in for interviews, but that's it. We don't have a pulse on what Matt LaFleur likes and what his, process is. So this, coming out of the blue is coming out of the blue for us, maybe not them. But I like the hire by Matt because I think Matt wanted someone. I think he wanted Joe Barry to take the defense and just handle it. Defense is yours. Go get it. I'll hold you responsible, but it's yours, right? And Barry didn't do that. And there was rumors that LaFleur had to step in, and maybe things changed from that midseason last year. So I think there's good indicators that Matt has hired a guy that can take that job and just run with it and own it. And Matt can kind of, he can watch over things, but I don't think he has to worry. I think Hafley has got this. I really do. And maybe that's overconfidence on my part, but I just feel like everything I've seen and watched by this guy, he knows what's going on, and he knows what he wants, and he knows how to get it. And he just has to make his players believe. And I think that's what Matt liked about this guy. And so I think Matt's going to enjoy himself a lot more when he can be the head coach, not necessarily part of the defensive coaching staff, and I think that might be a really, really good thing. Let Matt focus on this offense and take the offense now to the next level, and let Hafley work on that, decent defense with a lot of playmakers already. And I think he's not going to change too much with the personnel. I think he's got a lot of players there he can work with. I personally like the 4-3, and then whatever the roaming safety over top is what you keep hearing. Press coverage on the outside DBs. I love that. Like whatever they're describing Jeff Hafley's defense is going to be, I like it. Yeah, you could, go toe to toe with 4-3 versus 3-4, and we've been used to, we've had success with 3-4, but now we're switching back to 4-3. I mean, it whatever. You're not gonna always get 4-3 every single play. So I'm not really worried about that. But I love the idea of having 4 down linemen and everyone else doesn't have to rush. Like if we can accomplish getting to the quarterback and pressure like some of these great teams do, I'm all for it. If we can press the wide receivers to get them off their routes, get them off balance, let's do it. We've been waiting for that. And to watch these DBs play zone all last season and just let these wide receivers run all around them, I think we've had enough. And I think this is a breath of fresh air. Hopefully they get the result we've been looking for. I don't know if they have the player personnel at safety at the moment to maybe implement Hafley's dream, but we will see what they do in free agency or draft, or even, if let's say they bring back Savage or Owens or Ford, what if they could turn him in, one of those guys, into the roaming safety? I mean, it's possible, right? It's not like, well, we can't have anybody at safety we have now do that role. We don't know. And I think, Hafley steps in, he'll figure it out. He can identify, he can talk to these players, and then obviously he'll let Goody go do the work. So I'm excited about this. I was not excited with Joe Barry when he got hired. I think this is totally different, and I'm kind of really liking this, Ren. So I don't know. I just went on a little bit myself. So you got anything to bounce back off of?
Oh, I can interrupt, but sometimes I'll put my good listening ears on today. But no, I mean, you should be excited, and I think we all should be. I mean, you're going in a totally different direction than they have. Although the Packers did down the stretch play a little bit more 4-3 looks. When the defense started to get better, when Matt LaFleur maybe had a little bit to say about it. So it's not like, wow, this is a crazy development, but everything you hear about Hafley from former players and other people he's worked with is, hey, the guy is a super good teacher, and he's also a super good listener. And those are great things to hear about the guy who is going to lead their defense. And again, the proof will always be in the pudding, but he's bringing along one of his staff members. The staff, since this whole thing started to take place, was a week ago today. We were going to maybe record. We didn't. It actually just came down when you and I decided not to, which is, of course, a thing. But at the same time, it gave us time to let's digest this a little bit and learn about it. But gone are obviously Jerry Montgomery. Long time was back in Green Bay through part of the McCarthy administration. Inside linebackers coach Kirk Olivadotti is now gone, along with passing game coordinator Greg Williams. So interestingly enough, Joe Barry catches on in Miami today.
Yeah.
And we essentially trade for the same position, because the former Miami Dolphins linebackers coach Anthony Campanile is joining the Hafley staff as the run game coordinator and linebackers coach, which is literally the same title that Barry got in Miami. Interesting.
Yeah.
Campanile was interviewed for the Giants defensive coordinator position. Obviously thought well enough. Vic Fangio wanted to come along because obviously Vic was just in Miami. He wanted to come along with him to Philadelphia. So I think that's a pretty big get. And then you have Jason Rebovich, and Ryan Downard, who were already in Green Bay, but Hafley, knowing Downard previously, get some
love,
push up the pecking order here in Green Bay, and Rebovich will now get the defensive line where Jerry Montgomery was. He'll oversee that group to that 4-man front, and Campanile, he'll coach the 3 linebackers who will play in a base defense as well as coordinate the run. So there's a lot of changeover, and we kind of talked about that. That was going to be one of the good things is this whole thing changes over. You're just going to get a lot of new, fresh voices, fresh blood. They're all pretty young, Tay. Derek Ansley comes over as defensive passing game coordinator. He was the Chargers' de facto defensive coordinator last year, which was literally his title, but he didn't technically call that under Staley. So they've got a lot of good young minds, defensive minds here that have been in the game in the NFL, and you're going to see what they get to do with it. And I think it's been a long time coming. And, I don't, based on where the Packers defense had finished, again, we know how they finished the season this year, but where they've been at the last few years, I don't see anywhere but the arrow pointing up on this whole thing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that is the right mentality to have in when you approach this, when you look at this, and hopefully that is the case. There isn't any reason why we should be, the defense should be moving laterally or behind. This should move forward. Like all the indicators are pointing, yes, up and out. One more thing about Hafley, like people were saying, well, this wasn't necessarily their first choice. This wasn't Matt's first choice, but he was interviewing a bunch of people, and I don't know if you could necessarily definitively say that this was the choice. The closest thing to that was Ravens linebacker coach Zach Orr, who was reportedly given an offer by the Packers to be the DC, but he turned that down to be the DC in Baltimore, a position that he moved up to, upgraded from linebackers coach. So I guess you could say maybe that Orr was the first choice by the Packers, but I guess I just hate that wording. And it's like, why say that unless you're trying to be negative about it? Like, there are a lot of job openings. You go interview people, and if you don't get them, does that mean that this person's like, I'm settling on Jeff Hafley now? It's like, no, like you still choose to give him the job. Like maybe when Barry was hired, maybe that was like a third, fourth, fifth choice. But this to me this does not indicate to me that this was a second choice or we're settling on Jeff Hafley. This was like, no, let's get this guy now. Like this guy meets all the criteria, checks all the boxes. Let's do it. So yeah, maybe they did want Zach but he didn't want the job. So we move on to someone that does. So,
I do actually have a note here regarding that Zach Orr usually being one of the candidates, and I believe, yeah, he probably is and was, one of their, 1A, 1B, 1C. And I don't, that's, I guess, a way to look at that. Doesn't mean like you have to shuffle in that order. It's just they had guys that they said, hey, this is going to work. Here's a guy that we pinpoint to. Here's why we see Zach could make this work, why we can see Jeff make this work. It was also confirmed, too, that Ejiro Evero, who is the DC in Carolina, was one of their preferred choices. He was not allowed to move laterally from DC to DC with another organization. He did have mutual interest in Green Bay. He was one of those last candidates. Unfortunately, when they last looked, and inevitably ended up with Joe Barry. So it is what it is. But that doesn't mean Evero is preferred over Hafley, or Hafley was preferred over Orr, or vice versa, any of those mixes. I think they had probably a few guys that they said, these are guys who we want to be the coordinator of next defense. And here's why. Here's why they all make sense in different ways.
Yep.
This was not, no, you're right. This is not a, well, I guess we got to go. And they made it too public last time. People have talked about it. When they wanted to bring in the Wisconsin kid and it didn't work out. And then they had to go to option B or maybe D with regard to Joe Barry. So unfortunately, yeah, Jim Leonard didn't take the job and everybody knew it. And then they had to go scramble and get a guy who would take it. So I think they learned a lesson this time, and certainly it came out of right field a little bit, but seems like a guy who was plenty qualified to get the job done.
Just a couple changes on the offensive side of the coaching staff. They hired Sean Mannion, however you say that, as offensive assistant. He comes over from actually being a former player out of Minnesota. This is just I think a low tier hire that they like the guy. They're bringing him on the staff. This does not mean that Tom Clements is out as quarterbacks coach. This just means that they have another guy on the staff.
Could be somebody they're grooming.
Maybe later on. But
that's the way I take that. Could be groomed to potentially replace Clements down the road, because Tom's been around a minute, and he's probably getting to, this will be his last or second to last year would be my guess.
Yeah. So I mean, right now, don't worry about it. I think he's sticking around. The Packers also hire Miles White. He is going to be
a former Packer.
Yes, he's going to be on the staff as an assistant receivers coach. So I think they're just kind of, bolstering some places and just kind of filling in where they need to. Not a whole lot of changes on that offensive side, obviously. And, things looked decent there. I'm not thrilled about Stenovich being the offensive coordinator, but I think as long as you have Matt LaFleur at the helm, I think we'll be all right. I
mean, offensive coordinator in Green Bay today is just
it's a manager. It's just
you're just assisting the head football coach on offense. That's what you're doing. You're not doing anything more than that. You're there to lend your ideas to different things and teach guys some different things, but you're not calling plays for any reason or in any way, shape, or form.
Well, season's over for the Packers, obviously, and that makes us go right into the topic of free agents. The Packers do have several on that list, and as Ren will tell you, there are free agents, there are restricted free agents, and there are IRFAs, exclusive rights free agents, and there's a bit of a list on the free agents, and then the ARFAs and the IRFAs are a little bit shorter, but let's just run down those, Ren, and I guess we got to give our opinions, right? On who maybe we want.
I want your opines on this today. I mean, obviously, unrestricted free agents, we all know we don't have to get into definitions. They are free to test the market come the start of the new league year on March 13th. And honestly, Tay, through the unrestricted, restricted, and exclusive rights free agents on this list today, and of other years past, this is probably a pretty easy one. I mean, there's not a whole lot that stands out. Like, you're like, oh man, please don't leave. I'm gonna not be able to sleep about it. No, most of it's like, well, if it happens, it happens, and so be it. But I will read off, if you will be so kind, the unrestricted free agents, and get your first take on some of these names. And you don't have to point out and talk to each and every one of them, but a few that maybe make you feel a certain way or not. Say good, bad, indifferent. But that would be the list of the 2024 Packer unrestricted free agents. That would include Mr. Door County, A.J. Dillon, John Runyon Jr., Josh Nyman, Darnell Savage, Rudy Ford, Keyshawn Nixon, Josiah DeGuara, Tyler Davis, Eric Wilson, Christian Welch, who dat? Corey Ballantyne, Robert Rochelle, Jonathan Owens, and Dallin Levitt. How are you feeling about that list, Tay? Who are you thinking about, and why are you thinking about them?
Well, AJ, I don't know. I just feel like AJ, there's no one, there's not no one. There are a lot of people that could fill his shoes, right? Although it's a little disheartening when you look at the draft and there's not a lot of draft like superstars, in that class. And there are a lot of good ones, but maybe that's what the Packers do best anyway, is they wait till later to get talent. But AJ,
fifth round, I think, out of UTEP
Yeah.
that has worked out pretty well.
I like AJ as a person. Great dude. I hope he's on the team. But I only hope he's on the team if he can play better than he has. So if he's not around, I'm not going to be like super upset about it. It's reasonable. So I can only be upset about having a really good dude not being on this football team. I love Mr. Door County. I wish, if he's not around here anymore, I'm going to miss him. And that's unfortunate. But honestly, I just think he's going to test the market. And then I'm sure there'll be a team that will pay way more than the Packers will. That is usually how it goes with this. And so I think he's going to be gone. But that leaves a big void in that running back room. Really, it's just Aaron Jones, and that's it. And there's a lot to be filled in there. And so I think the Packers have a lot to do with that. And I think they've got their homework to do. Tyler Davis, Josiah DeGuara, see you later. I'm worried about the offensive line a little bit. I would like to see John Runyon Jr. around, even Yosh Nijman. I think that depth piece is crucial. Those guys have been in the system and haven't been too bad. John Runyon obviously has been really good. So that worries me a little bit when you only have like Jenkins, Myers, Ryan, Tom, and Rasheed Walker on the list that you like. And then the other ones, there's kind of a drop off into your second tier. So that worries me. I want to see those guys around. Corey Ballantyne, whatever happens, I don't know. That room is a little bit light, so maybe we do need a body. And he wasn't too bad, but he wasn't great either. Keyshawn Nixon, did you mention him? Right? Did you say his name?
I did.
Yeah, I would totally want him around. I would be disappointed if he wasn't on the team. I think that guy's electric. Even when he plays defensive back, he's not too bad, although he missed a few here and there that you could kind of tell. But as a punt returner, kick returner, like we need that guy. I don't even know what we'd do without him in that position. I think he's stellar. He's electric, and want to definitely see him around. The safety position, if we weren't to sign any of the safeties, that room is bare. That room is totally bare. So what do you do? I'll leave this up to the men and the coaches up there in Green Bay to decide what to do with these guys, if they can fit in the new system or not. But that worries me if they don't bring any of those guys back. So I didn't mind Savage. I could see him being around. I wouldn't mind that. Jonathan Owens also is like, you did pretty well for the position you're in. Can they rely on him be the guy? Maybe. I think there's potential with that. And then I don't know. When you look at like Rudy Ford, it's like, I don't know if we know too much, and we don't have a big enough pool to decide on that. But when you're looking at Anthony Johnson Jr. as really the only safeties on that list that and recognize, that's a little worrisome. So out of those names, those are the ones that kind of like make me think about it.
I mean, hey, certainly the safeties going, from the end to the front here, there's really not much to talk about there. Now, Jonathan Owens, a Darnell Savage, especially Owens on a literal veteran minimum kind of contract as a depth piece. Sure, you see it, makes sense. You do it. Darnell Savage, that'll be an interesting one just based on what they're looking for in the new scheme and what he's looking for on the free agent market. That's really does team and player agree that something makes sense or not? I think Owens might, just as a depth piece at a minimum, but that one's curious. Rudy Ford, I don't think he's back at all today. I just don't see it. He just really hasn't done enough. He had injuries this year, just not there. I think his time has passed. Generally, mostly in the NFL in general. With regard to the cornerbacks, Keyshawn is definitely an interesting piece, having played a lot in the slot this year. Obviously, we know he's dynamic from the kicking game piece, but which is becoming less and less a thing in the NFL.
It is.
Keyshawn can be a liability as a slot corner.
He
I think in this defense, it's going to be more of a priority. I think they're going to need a better slot corner in general. That doesn't mean a guy like Keyshawn isn't invaluable as far as a depth piece. Something happens to your slot corner, you got this other slot corner you can play amongst all the other things he can do. So he's a variable. I certainly think if they can find the right numbers, that's a guy they will try to bring back in some way, shape, or form. Guys like Eric Wilson could end up, getting a veterans minimum, going to play a lot of special teams. He's that kind of guy. The AJ Dillon thing, I don't see him having any real factor on this roster moving forward today. I think they need to get younger and faster at the running back position. I think AJ is a good pass catching running back. As far as a running back to alter anything game to game, he's not at all. So no, I don't think he has any place in the team. We've loved his time here as a person, but that's it for Mr. Door County. I think we've seen the end. And then Runyon Jr. and Yash is out today. There was kind of some curious stuff with him, in my opinion, the last year to even 2 years. Fell out of favor a couple times, disappeared, then came back in. I would get some playing time. Somebody's going to pay him to be a starting tackle, and he's earned it. But it's just that part's played out. Runyon Jr. is an interesting piece because he can play both guard positions and play center in a snap. I know he likes Green Bay, but guys like, John will get a big offer from, all it takes is one team. That's what makes that one tough. They're going to probably need to do some good work in the draft. Again, I'd like to have Runyon Jr. back. We'll see if they can come together on that.
Mm-hmm.
But really outside of that, there's really not much to say because, Josiah DeGuara and Tyler Davis, we saw, what they did with the two rookies on in that tight end room, and then bringing in the free agent from the Vikes late mid-season worked out really, really well.
Yeah.
I think they've got a good young room there, and I don't see how either of those players. There's no way DeGuara. I don't even know if he makes another NFL roster. He certainly doesn't get an invite back to this one.
Yeah. Let's move on to the RFAs, the restricted free agents. These are guys that the Packers have first option to offer them a tender. If they don't give them a tender, then they can become unrestricted free agents. And the two on the list are Patrick Taylor, the running back, and the cornerback, Robert Rochelle, who
I mistakenly listed in the unrestricted free agents. He is a restricted free agent. That's correct.
And so, again, the running back piece, it's like, well, if you have a Aaron Jones in the room and that's it, then what do? You got problems. Patrick Taylor, Emmanuel Wilson, which we'll talk about in a minute. It's like, okay, those guys are on the block. Are they any better than anybody else? Probably not, but what do you do? So sure, offer Patrick Taylor whatever the minimum is and see what happens.
I don't even see that. I mean, Robert Rochelle was a late season pickup. That's never going to happen. Not the right or first refusal tender at 2.4, not the original round tender at 2.5, not the second round tender at 4.0 million, and not clearly the first round tender at 5.4 million. No. There's no way. And then Taylor's not worth $2.4 million in your roster, Tay. You know that. Your name's Tay. You're not worth it. Just get used to it. It is what it is. But no, Patrick Taylor, Tay, getting $2.4 million from any team.
Yeah,
good luck.
I know.
He's got as good a chance of winning that Mega Millions as I do this week. It's just not happening. Nothing to worry about with the restricted free agents this year, Tay.
The exclusive rights free agents, the IRFAs, that is where Green Bay is allowed first to give them a qualifying offer, which is only a league minimum, which is nice. And then if a player doesn't receive an offer from the Packers, then they can turn into unrestricted free agents. We got running back Emmanuel Wilson, tackle Caleb Jones, and punter Daniel Whelan. And I think that it's safe to say that the Packers will probably give that minimum offer to all three. And I think all three of those guys deserve that, and I think they'll be on the roster.
No doubt they just used Daniel as their punter all season, Tay, so he's not going anywhere. They've invested a lot of time, capital in Caleb, and you're definitely going to bring Emmanuel back to be there in the preseason, see what the kid's got. So Yeah, definitely that is the case. You got that all right. Other than there are also players who've been in the league less than 3 seasons
Yeah,
that
right.
have seen their contracts expire.
Yeah. So yeah, there's like not a lot of super holes being left here besides just depth pieces, right? Running back, safety, you got a lot of holes if you don't bring some of these guys back, and then you got to fill them. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because we've seen with this DB room that we've had this last year that there are some good players there that we discovered. And maybe you get that with the running back. Maybe it's time to overhaul the whole running back situation. And I'm actually okay with that. I'm just worried about like, oh, what if they don't do that? What if they don't, think ahead and work this stuff out? Same with the safety position. I mean, we went into the safety room last year with super question marks everywhere, going like, well, I guess one of these guys will have to rise to the top, right? Half of them get injured, and then we end up with Owens, who did a pretty good job, and Savage, who kind of bounced back. So
I think what the Packers did was they put on and bought the literally off-brand Band-Aids for safeties
yeah,
in the offseason, and for some reason they stuck on their skin, so to speak.
yeah.
They somehow worked out. And I tell you what, I don't think you could do that 2 years in a row with how cheap and how little they had there at a talent group basis and have it work as well as it did. So it'll be very different in 2024, but wow, what a bang up job with the little bit of resources they had in 23.
Absolutely. So I'd be curious to see what they do here. I mean, maybe they stick with those generic Band-Aids, Ren, but maybe they actually.
I don't think so, Tay. You're going to say, I think we're going to talk about it next week, and there's a lot of non-generic Band-Aids we can start maybe getting a little excited about, thinking that could certainly help out that back end of the defense.
I've already started my list, my short list here of.
I've got a few in mind myself.
Excellent. Well, we've got 2 more topics to discuss in this episode. We've got about maybe 10, 15 minutes left here, Ren. So I will let you start us off talking about the Super Bowl. We talked inadvertently about it at the beginning of the episode. I don't think we tried to, but that was more location and how that is in context with Green Bay. But the Super Bowl is this Sunday. It's in Las Vegas. The 49ers take on the Chiefs. And I guess you got anything to say about this Super Bowl 58 on episode 258?
Oh, man. I mean, Tay, 2 teams I'm not a real big fan of. One I'm definitely not a fan of. That'd be the San Francisco 49ers. I think getting to their 8th Super Bowl, I want to say, Tay. Too many for my taste. It's a team that's been a thorn in our side, my entire life. You were once a fan. I hope you are not. That Joe Montana era, you enjoyed some Jerry Rice and
when I was 10, I loved it.
All those fellas, I remember having some sleepovers back in the day. You had a San Francisco 49ers blanket, so I still hold that against you in my youth. But that said, that is a team I do not care for. I think they're, a really talented group. When you look up and down that roster, and you want to talk about household names, guys that play well on offense and defense, those are littered with talent, Tay. They really, really are. Obviously, Brock is like some people consider it a negative, a game manager. He's better than a game manager. He's a good young quarterback. He does have, we saw it, in the rain against Jordan, the Packers, smaller hands that maybe in certain conditions, it's a problem. Obviously, under the dome in Vegas on Sunday night, probably not a thing. Kyle Shanahan does a heck of a job. A lot of guys have blossomed from the Shanahan tree throughout the NFL. Defensive guys, offensive guys. That's one hell of a roster. They do, and I heard this today, I think they have 6 players coming up that make more than $20 million on this roster who are going to be free agents at the end of the year. I mean, that's a lot of money, Tay.
Mm-hmm.
This team needs to get it done this year. This for Shanahan. This is kind of a open window. Not to say their window is going to close entirely. It's not. I think this is a very well coached and listen. I think John Lynch has done a hell of a job since he's been there as a GM. Then you have Pat and the Chiefs on the other side. They were dead to rights basically after the Packers game Sunday night in Lambeau. after Thanksgiving. And listen, the Packers beat them soundly, and everybody wondered, this Chiefs team just doesn't have it. But the best defense in the NFL in the playoffs has been the Kansas City Chiefs. They have knocked it out of the park with young, affordable defensive draft picks. I mean, that's tough to do. Spagnuolo plays great defense, and Pat Mahomes is a winner, Tay. He doesn't have hardly anything on offense. Pacheco's a nice back. Obviously, we know the Travis Swift experiment. And they've got a couple okay receivers outside of that. MVS sometimes can make a catch, sometimes can't. Rashee Rice is I'd say he's their best receiver, and he's a rookie. So I would say I'm going to root for the Chiefs, Tay, because I hate the Niners. And I'm cool with the Midwest dynasty over, it's getting a little old, but Pat's kind of still like Pat and the Chiefs, as opposed to I just can't stand anything about the damn 49ers. So that's where I'm going with it. I think that you just also, from a win the game standpoint, look what the Chiefs have done, man. You can't count them out. They play their game of football, and it seems to make everybody else play to their whims. We're going to do what we do and try to beat us.
Yep. I think I share almost all those same sentiments, Ren. As a huge football fan, it's really the only sport I really get into and like. And of course, diehard Packer fan. To the end, this is my team. I love everything Packers. We'll always talk about the Packers. This Super Bowl, I literally couldn't care less. I'm at rock bottom, maybe even underneath bottom. I just don't care. Same with you.
Excuse me? You don't need to repeat, but go on.
The Niners have been a thorn in our side. They are the team we love to hate. Maybe just a smidge above the Vikings right now. And this team is just this, like, they beat us when they shouldn't have, when we had it in our grasp. It's the wound is still open, Ren. I don't want to watch them play. I don't want to watch them win the Super Bowl. I really have no interest in this game. The Chiefs, like you said, this is getting old. I'm kind of sick of seeing them. I'm sick of seeing them win. This is the new Patriots team where I'm just like, I don't care anymore. I don't want to see them anymore. The only one I really care about, is the coach. I'm totally spacing on his name, Andy Reid. Like I love Andy Reid. Totally awesome guy. Wonderful coach. I hope he wins it. And he gets the trophy again. The other players is like whatever. I'm kind of sick of Pat. I'm sick of Kelsey. MVS. Give me a break. The whole Niners team. Shanahan. Love to hate him. So I just don't. There's nothing I like about this besides Andy Reid, honestly. And I just hope it's done with. I mean, this matchup here, Ren, AFC versus NFC it's kind of like the election coming up this year. It's like you don't like any candidate. You don't like any team in the Super Bowl here. So
you went there, Tay?
Yep. I don't like any of it. I don't like any of them.
I can't invite you to Thanksgiving anymore. Families can't talk politics. We're family, Tay.
I'm just saying that there could be a better team in the Super Bowl, Packers, and there could be better candidates for president. Anyway. That's all I got to say. I don't want to talk about Super Bowl. I just don't even want to watch this.
I mean, I don't care either. I am more concerned about what it is I'm going to plan for. I do like to make some super, like 2 to 4, or probably be 3, but like game day foods like that. Yeah. I'm definitely making wings today.
Okay. 100% yeah. Gonna happen.
Okay. Wings will be part of that because I got strong wing game these days, like really strong.
Okay.
But from there, what will my other 2 be? Could be some kind of take on nachos, whatever. But that's what it's all about. The commercial game sounds pretty strong this year as well. So that's all I'm into. Yeah, I hate the Niners. I hate that this is a repeat of a Super Bowl a couple of years ago. That's boring.
Yeah.
Again, Pat, go be the new dynasty. Go do it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Give it to. I like Kansas City as a city. Been there many times. Enjoy it. So I'll root for the city of Kansas City. and that's basically it.
It's true. It's true. But I don't know if I'll watch this game. I just really don't. And yeah, you could watch the commercials. There's always some sort of entertainment value there, but then you're at risk of actually seeing the game in between the commercials. So what are you gonna do? All right, Ryan, let's move on to the last bit of thing we got to talk about here. And Green Bay Packers officially announced today that they are searching for their new CEO. The Packers president, currently the CEO since 2007, Mark, what we named him as the Meddler Murphy, will formally retire in July 2025 when he turns the big 7-0. This is a mandatory retirement. It has been written.
This is where you could at least made a good politic joke where at least you don't have two old decrepit
True.
jinx where the Packers are smart enough to put an age limit on it and move on. That's where you could at least said that. Tim.
Now you did, so we're all covered there.
I'm just saying. I mean, you had to go make it weird.
So they have this article on Packers.com. Go check it out if you really want to get into it. But they have basically like, this is the person in charge from the Packers, and here's their team, and this is the agency that helped find Mark Murphy that's going to help this next crew find the next Mark Murphy. And they went through all this stuff, and they've got it all listed out, and it's like, holy crap. Like, this is like a big announcement. And I think it was, gosh, who was it? It's someone on Twitter. So now I feel bad because I can't remember who it was, but I'm paraphrasing when they said, oh no, I think it was Ingalls, Ken Ingalls. He's like, wow, the Packers are going to spend all this countless millions of dollars to publicly look for someone they already probably know they want. And
which is 100% true, which we know that likely person is already in the building.
So there's right. There's a short list that we are aware of.
His name is Ed Policy.
Yeah,
he's been essentially groomed for it.
He has, but then wasn't it our special guest Rob Demoski, who also threw out another name, and that name was Mr. John Schneider out in Seattle land, who
correct, Mr. DePere,
DePere,
as it is,
and I think that's a very intriguing candidate because he has ties to the Green Bay Packers organization, obviously, a long-time front office person, and then he went out there and had a lot of success out in Seattle, and then he's only in his like maybe late 50s, mid 50s, something like that.
I would say so, Tay, and they have a lot of changeover happening over there.
And
as it is,
he's under contract apparently until 2027. But that, I don't think that really matters when you're going to come over and be an executive to a football team, one of 32.
It's a non-lateral move, so I would say he could move and take the job because it's a step up.
Yes, it is. It's basically the owner of the Packers, right? As we have seen,
that is the de facto owner. Yeah. Hence the reason he became the de facto owner and a meddler. Hence the nickname Meddler was born.
So I really think that's a really interesting name that Rob dropped that day. Very intriguing. I could totally see it. But then, the other one is in the building, Ed Policy, who makes a lot of sense. Now, this begs the question, Ren, why do they have to announce it publicly? Why do they have to, unless it's because the Packers are a publicly owned team, they have to kind of like be out in front of this, right?
Ding.
So they have to say, like, okay, well, here's our procedure. We're officially doing this.
Correct. It is a public organization who needs to be public about these types of hiring and or firing decisions.
So look for I don't know, any kind of movement there. I don't know what we're gonna get as indicators from the Packers themselves. Like, oh, we're interviewing this person, or we're gonna get rumors, just probably like we did the coaching staff thing. But that happens in just over a year, basically. So, they're getting ahead of it, I guess. And this is when they do it. So we'll look for a name. I don't know. We can talk a little bit more about it when we get nearer to that. But anyway, John Schneider is a name we heard on the Beatland wire, and then we also have our boy up there in Green Bay right now, Ed Policy, who we think is probably a good fit also.
Ed Policy has literally been groomed to do and take it over as Mark's right hand man. It's no different than the transition from, I think, Barry Alvarez to Chris McIntosh as the athletic director in Madison. Essentially, Chris did that for years as his understudy. So I'd be surprised if it's not Ed. Now, things may change, but the end all be all, they said this process will take 6 to 9 months. So going into Mark's magnus opus next year, the 2025 NFL draft, we will already know who the next president of the Packers will be.
And for all those out there in the universe that is wondering, it can't be Mike Holmgren because he's 75 years old. He's too old, so he's out. And then if you want to start a rumor mill, Ren, about Elliott Wolf, he's 41, but he works for the Patriots as basically their de facto general manager at the moment. But those are just names I wanted to throw out in case people were wondering.
One last rumor, which we'll fuel the fire with, that one friend of the podcast, Rob Domofsky, also threw out. Maybe fundamentals. That'd be Big Mac.
Oh, Big Mac. Is he up for the job? Is he up?
Mike McCarthy? No, Rob said maybe Mike McCarthy would be interested. Here's the interesting piece, Tay. It'd have to come over the next months that he would at least want to maybe throw his name in there. And based on what's happened in Dallas, could Mike walk away and could insert Bill Belichick in Dallas? Could that happen? I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility, put it that way.
Carousel of craziness.
After all, Tay, it is the NFL.
It is. All right, Ryan. Well, that's all we got on those topics. We'll be revisiting those soon enough, so don't you worry. Well, I appreciate everyone listening, everyone subscribing, everyone supporting us on social media. We appreciate it. Go over to our YouTube channel. We're over there. The episodes are there. If you're around in that platform, check us out as well. All right, Ryan, I appreciate you joining me tonight. And we'll get back on these regular scheduled podcast episode releases here, and we'll get back to the speculation of the off season.
Exactly. More off-season talk to come, Tay. I think that's one of the big things for episode 259. That's 201. Devondre Campbell. Does he or does he not return for the 2024 season, and how that could mean some salary cap pluses or minuses for the Packers on the pup list.